Welcome to Purpose After Sports, where we interview athletes to share their post sport journeys and explore how they are reinventing what it means to compete. Today, I am joined here with Lawson Hall. He played football at Nevada and found himself eventually in navigating a transition I think a lot of current and former athletes find themselves in, and it's figuring out what's next. And through that journey, it eventually led him to create his own app and brand called Linked Up. And I'm excited to dive into that today. Lawson, thank you for taking time to be here with us.
Thank you for allowing me to be here. It's an honor to give back to, people who are in my shoes. And so I'm excited to do it.
We're excited to get into the nitty gritty. With that being said, take us back to you being a kid in California. What did your dream life look like for you growing up?
Yeah. Um, I think anybody who plays a sport, at such a young level, I started playing football at 7 years old. And, anyone who starts playing a sport that young, they have aspirations to play professionally, right? Because they see, their favorite athletes, their favorite teams on TV. And so that was my ideal job when I got older. Everyone asked me, "Hey, what do you want to be?" I said, "I want to be a football player." And so that was pretty much, my I wouldn't say only goal, but that was the only
Yeah.
goal that I really thought of when someone said, "Hey, what do you want to be when you're older?" And so I just wanted to be a football player when I was a kid. Once I started getting older and, went to high school, I realized, okay, well, there's other things that I should probably look into. But when I was young, I just wanted to be a professional football player.
With that, when do you think it started to become such a major part of your identity? Do you think just years and years of it, or was there a turning point in your career?
Yeah, there was definitely a turning point. I started off with flag football. I was playing basketball at the same time.
Mm,
Um, and I didn't really commit to one or the other until I got to high school when I realized I wasn't going to be 6'3", 6'4", and, you know, be able to be a point guard, starting point guard at my high school team. So, that's when I kind of locked in on football and I said, all right, let's take this thing seriously. I was pretty good growing up. I was always, one of the, fastest players. Just kind of, I was always like one of the MVPs on my team growing up, through Pop Warner. And so once I hit high school and I started to get, attention from colleges and I started to play early. I said, okay, let's take this thing seriously.
now, with that, what do you think made you gravitate towards football? Was it the contact and kind of being able to like, be so aggressive, or the technique of it all?
Yeah. I think it's a lot of things. I think the outlet to be able to express myself in terms of, just express my competitiveness, let out some anger. It's the only sport or one of the only sports where you can pretty much hit someone as hard as you can and it not be, illegal or no one's gonna, bat an eye. They're actually gonna cheer for that. And so
Right.
that's what kind of attracted me to the sport and being able to just win. I think I've gotten, from a young age to even now, I'm addicted to winning. I like to work hard and then be able to see the fruits of my labor at the end of the day. And so everything that, competitiveness, an outlet for, my emotions. And I think one of the most important is just the team bonding, building those connections with, your peers and other people who are like-minded. And
Let's talk about you becoming a collegiate athlete. So talk to me about picking that school. Talk to me about, okay, this is going to become an opportunity for me in college.
yeah, so like I said, when I got to high school, I got the opportunity to play varsity at a pretty, young age. I was even young for my grade. I graduated high school at barely 17. So once I became a sophomore, they moved me up to varsity, and I remember specifically, I'll never forget this. I had a coach um, who said I was playing a safety and I think running back at the time. I played linebacker all the way through my career growing up, but when I got to high
Okay.
school, I wasn't, as big as, some of the linebackers. And so I was playing safety. And I told my linebackers coach, the varsity coach, when I was a sophomore, I said, "Hey, coach, uh, I played linebacker before. I know I'm not, the ideal linebacker size yet, but, I want to transition over to linebacker." And he tells me, "Absolutely not. You're not big enough." He said, "You can't play linebacker." And I said, "Okay." And so from there on,
Watch this.
from there on, I made it a point to prove him wrong and prove myself
Yeah.
right. Um, and I just got in the gym and, I started to, bulk up and get stronger and put on some weight. And at the end of the year, they finally said, "All right, let's see what you got." And so, I, s- I started a couple games the end of my sophomore year, junior year. That's when I started full time. Um, Junior year, we won the city championship, which is for our region. And then I got my first offer. I actually got my first offer the summer of my sophomore year from Colorado State. And that story is pretty interesting. I'll tell you a quick version of it. Uh, I'm not sure if you're familiar with 7-on-7 camps, but
Yes.
it's pretty much, okay. So I was at a
But
seven on
share it with
seven
our
camp.
audience. Share it with our audience just in case they don't
Okay.
know.
Yeah, so football is 11 on 11. In the summer, you do 7 on 7 against other schools. And so that's every position besides the O line and the D line. So it's all the skill positions, as they call it. And so I was a linebacker. Remember how I just told you I got moved to linebacker at the end of my sophomore year. And so the summer going into
Yes.
my junior year, we were at 7-on-7 camp. And, I had just bulked up. I was feeling myself. So I took my shirt off and I started playing. And it was pretty normal at the time. It's pretty
Okay.
normal.
Okay.
And there were coaches out there. And so after I, just had a big play, I'm running over to the sideline and I see a coach and he calls me over and he says, "Hey, are you Ricky Thomas?" And I said, "No, I'm not Ricky Thomas. Ricky Thomas was a D line. He was a D lineman. So he wasn't at that San Jose camp, but he was pretty good on our team. And so that coach was looking for Ricky Thomas." He said, "Heard you, Ricky Thomas?"
Hmm.
And I said, "No, he's a DN. He's not here, but I'm Lawson Hall." And I shook his hand. And he said,
Yeah.
"Okay, nice to meet you." And so day goes on. I can see him, still looking at me and, kind of evaluating me, make a couple more plays. And then I go over to the sideline again and he says, "Hey, Lawson, come here." I go over to him and he says, "You have any offers yet?" And I said, "Nope." He said, "Okay, well, you just got your first one." He said, Colorado State's going to offer you a scholarship." And I said, "Whoa, like what? That's how it works?"
You just thought I was
Like,
Ricky 5 minutes
yeah.
ago.
I said, "Wow, went from Ricky
What?
to getting an offer." Um, I was, eh, that moment changed my life, honestly.
Yeah.
It's my life hasn't been the same since. Just because it started, other schools to get interested in me, and it just kind of built my confidence up to say, "Hey, I can really be a Division I football player, and eventually make it to the NFL." And so I started to work harder and harder from there. And after that, once the season started, more offers started rolling in, and the accolades started rolling in, and that's how it began. But I ended up choosing. Well, I had about 10 scholarship offers in total. I ended up choosing the University of Nevada, Reno, because throughout my recruiting process, that's the only school where the coaching staff didn't change up. Um, and that's pretty important to me because I like stability. I was pretty attached to those recruiters and that staff, and I would hate to go to a school where they didn't even recruit me, and I was just
Yeah.
kind of like the guy who they had to coach us because I already had an offer. Um, and they also promised me some early playing time and things like that. Um, and they were also pretty good academically. And so, a combination of all those things, pretty close to home, I ended up going to University of Nevada, Reno.
And I like you talking about this because we got a chance to talk about this off camera about one of the bigger reasons you choosing a school. And I don't feel like it's talked about enough. And especially with my journey, I shared a little bit with you of just having so many different coaches. I think later in my career, I was able to focus a little bit more on that, but that is such a huge thing, and it's not always something
Hmm.
you can control, but it's a really important thing to look into of, the changes and, trying to find a school, where you built those relationships with coaches and maybe seeing how long they can stay. Again, it's a business. You can't always keep that coach there, but I agree with you. Stability is a huge part, especially when you're going to take such a big leap to be a college
Exactly.
athlete. So, I think it's important for some of our going into or aspiring college athletes, to think about that as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked about you choosing the school. Now you
Hmm.
become a Division I athlete.
Hmm.
What are you like thinking about what people normally uh, say or perceive about D1 athletes? What do people normally get right?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think I never wanted to admit this until years after I was done playing, and now I look and I see how they are now. Um, but a lot of people, there's a bad stigma around the confidence that a lot of D1 athletes have, and a lot of people mistake it for arrogance and cockiness. Um, I would say it's kind of in the middle. And I
Hmm.
say that because all your life you're being told how good you are, how good you can be, your potential and things like that. It's natural that your head gets a little big and you start to believe it. But it's not to say that you should start acting arrogant or treating people less thereof. But I would say a lot of people they put that bad stigma around student athletes. I wouldn't say it's right. They're right to a certain extent. That confidence is through the roof. But,
Mm.
some of them translate that over to arrogance and cockiness, but you have to be able to, stay level-headed, stay humble, and be confident without being arrogant. So that's just one thing.
That is a very, very good take because that is a conversation constantly, that I have is you have confidence and cocky, and
Mhm,
there is that fine line, and with athletes, you do have to have a certain level of confidence, and
mhm,
it can be taken the wrong way sometimes, but you also have to be able to perform well, and if from an athlete mindset, if I come in there and I'm like, yeah, I'm not good enough. No, I can't do this. We know what's going to happen. You're not going to be able to do it. Right. So years and years of training your brain, and your psyche to be like, no, I'm good enough. Even if your opponent, you like have lost to them multiple years in a row, like that's just building and building. And so I do think it teeters that line and sometimes it can't be stepped on a little bit, a little bit.
yeah,
That's a good
it's
take.
it's a battle to try to, stay humble. A lot of the times, I tell the story sometimes too. Half the battle is believing that you can win and believing that you can achieve and you can do it. I felt this firsthand when we played Justin Herbert's Oregon Ducks. And yeah, so the whole week,
Enough said.
yeah, the whole week, the players, we were in a mindset of, we can beat these guys.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, the we have the talent, we have the schemes, we have the skills. But on the other hand, after every practice and during every meeting, our coaches are saying, "Hey, we can keep up with these guys." No, 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 no. It's not we can keep up with these guys. It's we can beat these guys. And so that mindset that they had and that they kept kind of saying like, oh, we can compete, we can keep up, we can do this, that ended up making us lose the game 77-6. So I say that because, if they had a different mindset, the mindset that we came in that week with, I think the game would have been closer. If not, we would have, maybe had a chance to win the game. But from the beginning of the game, we lost. because our coaches instilled that losing mindset in us. So that's why I say half the battle is knowing and believing that you can actually win the game.
Absolutely. So we talked about what is kind of maybe some people have right. Now, talk to our audience about something or some things you think that people, especially non-athletes, get completely wrong and misunderstand in the D1 athlete world.
Yeah. Um, I think the thing that stands out the most is that student athletes, for lack of a better term, are dumb or
Mm,
are, not as smart as them just because they know how to catch a ball, throw a ball, uh, put a ball in a basket. But it's completely wrong. Just because they're talented physically does not mean they're not talented mentally or, they're less thereof than you. So I would say that I think most people, they think it's a trade off between having physical
mm.
talents and having mental talents, but you can have both.
That's a great perspective. Yeah, I think now reflecting on that too, I think that is kind of uh, a stigma that the athlete world can get, and some can lean into. But I think, and if you look at it full circle, it's pretty impressive. Some of the things that you're having to do as a student athlete, um,
Yeah.
and it does take a little bit of brain power. So maybe a little bit more, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a lot, but I think that's a really good take.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about you were able to win quite a few accolades. Behind all of that, because in the world of sports, we see all the good moments, right? And those are the ones that go on social media. Those are the ones that are going on the school flyer and newsletter. But on the inside, what do you think that hardest year of college sports was for you?
Ooh. It's a tie, I would say, between my last year and
Mm,
my the year that I redshirted that I was supposed to play. If I had to choose, man, if I had to choose, I would say that last year. Just because I knew that that was the year that I had to prove myself, especially coming from a school like Nevada, where it's not, a school where they just, pump out talent that goes to the NFL.
mm,
And so I had to really work, harder and um, be able to like really stand out at that school as well as in the conference. So I would say my last year, just because I knew what was at stake, and I knew that, hey, if I don't make it to that level, then I got to
yeah.
figure it out fast.
Now, talk to me about kind of what was going through your head the redshirt year. Was it just a mental battle of not playing, or was there something else involved?
Yeah. So what happened was, the beginning of the season. So this is after my freshman year, beginning of sophomore year.
Mhm.
I was only on, special teams. I'm not sure if, well, I'll explain for the audience. I was only on special teams. Special teams is kickoff, kick return, punt return, um, and field goal. And I wasn't a starter on defense yet. I was like third string, maybe second string if someone got hurt. And so they gave me the option. They said, "Do you want a red shirt or do you want to play?" And so I talked to a lot of people and I said, "I'm going to red shirt." Week 4 comes around and we're playing Hawaii, and a lot of linebackers got hurt. And they came to me and said,
Mm,
"Lawson, we need you to play. We need you to bring a red shirt." And I said, "Wow, okay, let's do it." And so I was actually going to be starting that week.
okay.
And uh, I go out. So mind you, I'm still staying in shape throughout those 4 weeks, but obviously I'm not competing as hard as some of the people who are playing just naturally. And we start a kickoff drill, and the whistle blows. I take off running, and I pop my hamstring. And it was probably one of the, I would say, scariest injuries I've had because I didn't know what happened. I didn't know what that was. It just felt like I got shot
Yeah.
in the leg. Um, and I just went down immediately. And I just
Yeah.
said, wow, like there's no way. Like, what are the odds that the week I get pulled up to start my first college game. I tear my hamstring.
Right.
And from there on, obviously, I redshirted the rest of the year because, I wasn't going to come back with a couple weeks left and, burn my red shirt for that. But that's how I ended up redshirting. So I was supposed to play my sophomore year, pop my hamstring on a kickoff drill, to be out the rest of the year. So that was tough for me, really tough.
Now talk to us through an injury in college. Is it you technically, have a bigger support system and have resources, but did you ever feel isolated at times? And how did you deal with sitting on the sidelines and watching your teammates play what you love?
Yeah, it's hard because, everyone, your trainers, your coaches, your teammates are going to say, hey, we're here for you. They're going to give you support. But at the end of the day, you're going to be alone and you're going to think about, all the people who have the opportunity to pass you up for one, at your position. And, I just leaned on, my mom, my dad, my friends. And I just kind of had to remind myself why I got there to begin with. Um, all the hard work I had put in, just kind of reassuring myself. But it's tough because, you're gonna be alone in your thoughts and um, you know, you're just gonna sit there thinking about, hey, what if I didn't get hurt? But everything happens for a reason. You can't think of, what could have happened or what would have happened. Just lean on your support system outside of that. Um, and just know that, things are going to go back to normal pretty soon.
That's a good positive mindset, Lawson. I think it can the most positive people, you can still get in a rut sometimes. And there's different levels of the fear of, will it happen again or will I be that athlete that I was? And like you said, everybody else is getting a chance to get even better every day. How much more do I have to catch up with that when I come back? And there are things that they're not really in your control at that time. And you have to stay in what you can control, and like you said, and rely on those resources that that can be there for you, because those are the things you can't control in the moment. Then when you get
Exactly.
back, or if you have PT or things like that, those are where you stick in the present and get as healthy as you can. But it's tough. It's tough being injured at any level, but at college, you feel like there's just this extra load of pressure, not only from maybe the staff, but yourself as well. Of just like, "Ah, why can't I just get better?"
Exactly. So that was the hamstring injury, but this was a whole separate injury. My, yeah, pretty bad. It's going to be like that forever. It got caught in someone's face mask, but I didn't take any. Yeah, I wasn't out practice for it. They just fixed it, put a little brace on it, and I was good to go. So that
Did
just
they
tells
say
you a
it
little
was
bit about.
dislocated or
No, it was popping
broken?
off the skin. Actually, it was broken. It was hanging off, just like this one too. You can see the cut there, but that one's straight. But yeah, it was popping
Oh
out this way. If you,
gosh.
a lot of linebackers have messed up fingers. So next time you see a linebacker, say, "Hey, can I see your fingers?" You'll see.
I don't want to know the stories. That's horrible. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, that just gave me the chills. Oh gosh.
Yeah. It's
You
life.
guys, ugh. The injuries, I'm sure, are the long li in somebody's helmet.
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have
Yep.
nightmares. Thanks, Lawson. Yeesh.
Love that.
Okay, so, can we talk about, with your college career, what is something when you look back now you're most proud of that never showed up on a stat sheet?
Ooh. I would say that never showed up on a stat sheet. Um, just the things I've done outside of football. They're not on stat sheets. They may be on bios, like, on the website, the school website, but I I was nominated for the Werfel Trophy nationally, which goes to the athlete who exemplifies community service as well as academic excellence and things like that. Um, the semifinalist for that. And then I won the humanitarian award at the Idaho Potato Bowl. Um, those things aren't on my official stat sheets. Like it doesn't say 100 tackles, 5 picks, and a Werfel Trophy watch list, but um,
Yeah.
those are still things that I'm really proud of because I really pride myself on giving back to the community and being a resource for other people who need it. I like to use my platform and my everything I have to better others, and so those are the things that aren't on my official stat sheets that I'm pretty proud of that I did in my college career.
You should be extremely proud of those accolades, and I think it's you get into some programs and they're big on, building that person outside of your athletic career, but sometimes you have to do that yourself, and, that is something that is important to your core, values and, still being able to, uh, be able to accomplish that while being a D1 athlete, that's awesome, so
Thank you.
that's a great answer, Lawson. I love that. Okay. Let's move on to your transition. Let's get
Okay.
into the nitty-gritty here. Did your athlete career did it sneak up on you when it was coming to an end, or were you processing it slowly?
It stuck up on me because in the back of my mind, I knew, okay, my college career is coming to an end, but hey, I might play in the NFL.
Mm,
Um, and so it still didn't hit me until I didn't get signed by a team. Uh, so, and there wasn't anyone I could, that was in my ear saying, hey, it's going to end soon. It's going to end
yeah.
soon. You might want to start, thinking about other stuff because everyone's still in football mode. I was still playing. And so I would say it just, in a way, it came out of nowhere because I knew it was coming, but I didn't realize the impact it was going to have on my mental, um, and just my overall well being, honestly.
So perfectly worded, Lawson, because it's the weirdest thing. You just
Hmm.
know in the back of your head at some point it's gonna end, but it's like, "Well, I have another year or I have another month." It doesn't until it's happening, you're just, like, not processing it for some reason.
Yeah.
Walk us through those battles, when it ends. What are you trying to figure out about yourself? And what are kind of the things that you're going through as just you're a person, maybe no longer a football player?
Yeah. It's tough because I played football since I was 7 years old. It was all I
Yeah,
knew. Luckily, I had the support system and parents, to help me find myself, you know, um, besides a football player in terms
yeah,
of, I was always required to get good grades. I was always pushed to do extra stuff. Um, I can't thank my parents enough for that. But when it finally ended, I still didn't believe it was over. I had an
yeah,
agent and he, well, he for one, for sure didn't want to believe it was over because he was my agent. And
yeah,
he was pushing me to go to the CFL, to play for some of these, UFL, some of these alternative leagues. And I kept telling him, hey, if it's not the NFL, respectfully, I'm not going to play football anymore because I have a master's degree. I can get my
yeah,
career started and make just as much money playing in the CFL or UFL without, putting my body on the line. And so when I told him that, he's upset, but he gets it. And,
yeah,
he kind of backs off. And now I'm alone with my thoughts on my mom's couch, figuring out who am I? Am I, I really didn't know who I was outside of the football player. Um, and it was tough. I call it a quarter life crisis that I went through. Because I didn't have any money. This was my senior year was the beginning of the NIL era. And so
mm,
got a couple thousand from it, but nothing life changing or something that can kickstart my life after the
yeah,
sport. Um, and so I was broke. Uh, no job wanted me because I didn't have anything on my resume because football is a year-round sport. I tried to get jobs and internships, but I couldn't because no one wanted
Mhm.
to deal with my schedule.
Yeah.
Um, so I had nothing on my resume. I was broke. I didn't know who I was besides the football player, and I was, what was I doing? I was doing DoorDash. Um,
Mm.
and, you know, I was broken. I was broken. I had to lean on my family, my friends, people who've been there before, and just remind myself that, I have some value to this world. Um, I'm not just lost in the football player. And so eventually I figured it out, but, yeah, it was tough.
Would you walk our audience through, because I think this is a perfect transition of kind of what you are doing now in the student athlete world. You were struggling finding out who you were, and in that job force that can be so tricky for
Hmm.
so many of our student athletes of what do I even want to do, or if I can't find any job opportunities, will a job take me? I feel like it's coming full circle into what you created here.
Yeah. So I didn't fully find who I was, outside of football player until I actually joined a company and I started working. A
Mm,
company took a chance on me and they let me join on as a manager trainee. This was about like 6 months after I was done playing. So June. So I graduated in December, and then in June I joined as a manager trainee. And it was interesting. It was a humbling experience because, um, I was doing things, I had a master's degree. So obviously I was thinking,
yeah.
okay, I should already be, making a lot of money and doing things of that nature. But, they saw that, hey, this guy can really provide value to us and make us more money and lead some teams. And so they promoted me to a pretty much an account manager down in San Diego where I relocated. And that's when I realized that student athletes, we have a really big advantage when it comes to working. And when I got there, the culture was terrible. They weren't making any money. People weren't doing what they were supposed to do. And
Mm,
so me being uh, the 2-year team captain that I was junior and senior year in college, first time unanimously voted team captain in program history. I took that experience and I changed the culture there.
yeah.
Obviously there's some soft skills I had to learn because you don't learn those soft skills playing football. But I couldn't tell someone, hey, just get on the line and run if they didn't do something
Right.
correctly. Um, but my ability to lead a team and to lead people, the experience that I gained playing football helped me in the workplace because it changed the culture. I started, making the location more money. Um, I did things that they've never seen at that location before, uh, and I exceeded all expectations. And so I said, wow, like this is in my head, it was pretty easy because I'm used to
Yeah.
high stakes environments, really like, really making things hard. But that's when I realized the bar is pretty low. When you start to work and you start to get in those environments, most people want to do just enough to keep their job. They
Mm,
don't want to do enough to make it to, the NFL or to make it to the next level. They just want that consistent, steady paycheck. I call
mhm,
it you're surrounded by once you're a student athlete and you get to the workplace, I call it you're surrounded by a lot of bench players, meaning
mm,
a lot of people who don't really want to start. They don't want to, go to the next level. They just want to be on the team.
mm,
That's that's what,
okay.
and when I'm hiring people, I say I'm looking for starters. I'm not looking for bench players. I'm looking for
Yeah,
someone who wants to play and wants to win. I don't want someone who just wants to be on the team. And
yeah,
so I realized that and it helped me exceed. And I was doing that for 2 years and they said, "Hey, this guy can, really bring some value to even, at a bigger scale." And so they promoted me to hire to basically a general manager role down in where I am now in LA. Um and in between that promotion, you know, I was I was taking some leadership classes for the company just to hone in on those skills. Uh, and I started to think. I said, well, if I feel this way about, my experiences translating to the workplace, and since I was so lost when I first graduated, I feel like I can help other student athletes realize that potential earlier. And
Yeah.
so that's when I started to say, okay, well, um, it started off something completely different. It started off with me like trying to teach traditional like leadership courses through an LMS. Uh, but you know, for one, no one really has time for that, especially if you're, if you're still playing the sport. And um, then it turned into a two business model system. So it's first a staffing agency, just helping student athletes find jobs and pairing with, employers who like hiring student athletes. So I have a really big network of employers who like student athletes and then student athletes looking for jobs. So I pair those two. So that's one of the business models. The other business model is helping them prove those abilities that they've or those skills that they've developed other and so I did a lot of market research and research on, and just interviews and things like that on what some of these companies look for in entry level candidates.
Mm.
And there's pretty much five main things. And so the app, the linked up app helps student athletes either that are about to graduate or have already graduated. It helps them prove that, hey, I have these five abilities through responding to scenarios and their discussion with peers. And so there's a lot to it, but essentially it's just helping student athletes prove their abilities that they've gained throughout their whole sport experience and then pairing them with employers who value that experience.
Who would be a perfect candidate for this app?
hmm I would say, obviously student athlete, but someone who has, I would say someone who's been a captain before, someone who does extracurriculars, they don't just, they're not for lack of they're not bench players. No, okay, you could be a bench player, but I mean bench player figuratively, how I explained it earlier, in terms of
Right,
they don't
right.
want to be better. They don't want to take the next step for career growth. So someone who actually cares about their development outside of their sport and
Mhm.
someone who has shown to be a leader or someone who wants to do more than just play their sport.
Yeah.
That's someone who would be ideal. And, someone who's lost and they don't know who they are outside of their sport and who just needs a little help in um, translating that experience to the experience that employers care about.
When you were starting in the job force after college, what do you think, and maybe still, skills that show up that are so much, "Oh, yeah, this is straight from football."
The main one, the biggest one, I would think is, well, there's actually the two biggest ones. The first one is work ethic, um,
Mm,
because I would say I was hitting like 50-hour weeks playing football, but I wasn't getting paid for it per se. Like
right.
it was just, that's what I wanted to do. I did that by choice. Like I went to
Yeah.
school, study hall. Uh if you're an athlete watching this, you know exactly what that day entails. Um, but I would say the work ethic, like I said earlier, the bar is low. Everyone's just doing enough just to get a paycheck and go home and, live their life. But so the work ethic and then the competitiveness, the drive to want to exceed expectations and want to win. Most people, they don't have that. So when you're a student athlete going into the workplace, that competitiveness that you've established and internally grown throughout your playing days, you're going to take that to the workplace, whether you like it or not. It just is what
Yeah.
it is. Um, yeah. So work ethic and competitiveness and drive to win. I said those are the two main things.
100%. I think, those things just really never turn off,
hmm
and it shows up in the workplace, it shows up at the grocery store. It shows up when you're brushing your teeth. I mean, it's just in our blood of just you step up and you're like, "Okay." And it could be a mundane task, and it's just what we're used to, and I think it can be super powerful,
Mhm.
to use not only, putting that in your resume, but using that into, the job that you decide to go into because you are really, really good at it, and it's figuring out those transferable skills.
Yes.
I can do that during sports. You're going to really excel in the workplace too. You can do it really well there too. So, I
2 other
think your
things I
app
just
is
thought. I'm
go
sorry,
ahead, keep
go ahead.
going.
No,
No,
you
I was
just
like, your app is perfect for this.
Yes. Yeah, 2 other things is coachability, obviously, being
Yeah.
able to take coaching and feedback, um, and then just perseverance, which is why I think former student athletes are really good for sales roles because they can take a no and get right back up and try again with the same effort that they did before. A lot of people can't do that, but, you know, um, losing games and then going to practice the next day with the same energy that you had before you lost that game, that preps you for sales. I tell people that all the time. So those are just, 2 more things.
And I'll even argue with you. Not only, yes, you have to come back the next day, you have to figure it out the next play. You have to have
Yeah.
a new mindset. You have within seconds of, I messed up, I made an error, I did this wrong, and I have seconds to change my face, my attitude, and fix what I just did wrong.
Yep.
Um, so I think the when you look at it from a different lens, it can be easy and hard at the same time to be like, "Oh, wait, those are some pretty great things that I learned during sports, and those actually work in the outside world. It wasn't just related to sports." But when you're in it,
Yes.
everything's heavily related to whatever sport you choose. So it just seems like, "Oh, yeah, I'm really good at listening to a coach." Well, you might be really good at receiving feedback and constructive criticism. But it's
Yes.
figuring out that new wording now for, life outside of sports.
Problem is you're invisible to these hiring managers because you don't have that on the resume. If you're just
Mm.
I hire people too currently. And when I'm going through resumes, I'm not looking through to, "Ooh, does this person not have experience because they were a student athlete?" I am, but I know other people
Yeah,
aren't.
yeah,
I am because I was a student athlete. But I
yeah,
know other hiring managers, they're not doing that. They don't care. And so that's why I built LinkedIn because it helps them translate and not just show that on a resume. There's other things that I've established that can help them prove that experience. Um, but that's kind of the main driver behind that is, hey, you have all these desirable traits that employers look for. You just don't have the resume to show for it.
absolutely. Now, when you're working and you've been building this app, is there a story, that helps you to realize why you created it, and kind of full circle?
Yeah. I think it just kind of piggybacks off of what I said earlier in terms of uh, all of well, actually, I'll tell you this story. So when I first became an account manager in San Diego, the president of the company, I'm really good at establishing relationships with people just because I'm naturally an empath. Like I know how to mimic someone's behavior and kind of their social cues and things like that. I just do it naturally. And so it leads to just a lot of networking, things like that. And so I was really cool with the president, only a couple months in. And he comes to my location, comes to my office and he says, in my office, he says, "Lawson, I know you're good with people, but what do the numbers look like? Can you drive performance?" And I pulled up the spreadsheet with all the account manager rankings. There was 48 at the time.
Mm,
In my district, the one I took over, not my fault, but I took over it. It was dead last. It was number 48. And I said, "You see this?" I said, "In 6 months, I'm going to be halfway up this list." Then I said, "In the next 6 months, I'm going to be in the top 15, and then I'm going to be in the top 10." And he goes, "Okay, let's see." So that's exactly what I did. So 6 months later, I think I'm like 20 something. He shoots me an email. He says, "Good job." I said, "Okay." 6 months after that, I think I was like number 9, and I sent him an email, and I said, "What did I say? I told you I'll do it."
Mhm.
And then the last 6 months I was working there, I could have got to number 1, but I ended up number 4. Um, and it's just that right there, I gained that mindset and that ability and that wanting to exceed. I gained that from sports.
Yeah.
No one else in my company did have that mindset. They weren't looking at the rankings saying, "Oh, okay. I'm going to find a way to." Maybe they did, but I actually found a way. Like I actually put it into practice, and every day, everything I did was basically to get better on that ranking because that ranking was pretty much everything my job entailed. Um, but things like that, just like I have a lot of stories, working. I've only been working for 4 years, but throughout those 4 years, I have a lot of stories that kind of exemplify um, that athlete to uh, workplace mindset that kind of shows, okay, a lot of student athletes probably have the same mindset. I want to help them their foot in the door sooner. That way, because
Yeah.
I got lucky. I like to tell people I got lucky. Like I got lucky that they even took a chance on me because I wasn't getting a lot of interviews. I just wasn't. And so
Yeah.
s- student athletes shouldn't have to rely on getting lucky to get their foot in the door. That's not fair. It's just not, especially when they have these desirable traits. And
Yeah.
so my mission and my goal is to get their foot in the door so they can show their abilities and they can move up and provide value to organizations.
100%. And I think your example, it was another great way to show goal setting. And
Hmm.
again, you use it, and I'll use basketball, but I want to learn this new skill, dribbling, or I want to learn this new and it's like, all right, I'm going to give myself this amount of time. I'm going to practice every day, and you do it.
Yeah,
We do the same thing in the workforce, and you have
exactly.
that same, you realize it. You okay? I put a date on there, so I have a way to measure it.
Hmm.
And then you have the tools and whatever you need to get there, and we're gonna do it because we have the mindset we don't lose. So
Exactly.
it's how do you get creative with that wording, and then also realize that you've got it all. We
Exactly.
just gotta get to the employers. Um,
Exactly. And for my academics out there, that's called SMART goals, SMART, specific, measurable, achievable. That's really important. Make sure the goal is achievable, relevant, make sure it's relevant to what you're trying to do, and time bound, put a time to it. If all your goals are SMART goals, you're going to be good.
Absolutely. I think that's just pause that part of the episode and also look those up, because I think it's a simple way to remember them and a great way to achieve goals and think more about it, because even as an athlete you set them constantly but might not think, oh yeah, like this is how we made this work. And so it's good to start
Exactly.
practicing and thinking about those things outside of it, whether even if it's
Hmm.
just a random hobby or something like that to get you prepared.
Yeah.
Great point. Okay, so um, let's go. I got a fast break section if you're ready, and where
Let's
we
do it.
ask rapid fire questions.
Ooh.
So, yeah, let's
All
take you
right.
to our fast break section here. Now, these are answers that are going top of the dome. Okay, you got to
Okay.
answer first thing that comes ahead your head. And I'm not really supposed to respond, so I'm gonna get into it. Okay. All right.
All right.
One word to describe your athletic career.
Gritty,
Best lesson sports taught you.
cliche, but don't give up.
A quality every athlete should develop.
Coachability,
What's something you're still working on?
Emotional intelligence.
That is so good. I want to elaborate on that. Okay, a book, a podcast, or a resource that has impacted you.
I read a lot of books, a lot of books. The one that's impacted me the most, I'm an entrepreneur, so I like the blue ocean strategy. Teaches you how to create uncontested market space in your industry. It's really good.
Okay, and then these next two are fill in the blank. So success means blank.
Ooh. So I'll change it up and I'll say success means whatever it means to you. Because a lot of people like to define success based on other people's perspectives of it, but success is whatever that looks like to you. So success means, it's kind of hard to say that after means, but success is what it means to you.
I see you twisting it a little bit. All right, and this next one, let's see. Purpose means blank.
Purpose means, I think, standing for something, um, or passion. Just purpose means passion. Um, just, having something that you're passionate about. Now you have purpose. Now you have purpose while you're doing it. So purpose means passion.
That's good. All right. Last one. What's next for Lawson? What's next for you?
Well, in a perfect world, um, I want to be my own boss. I don't want to, my whole life, work for someone else. And so what's next for me is, uh, building Linked Up to the point where I can focus on that full time and help, those who are just like me, trying to find a way and trying to find their foot in the door and improve their abilities that they've developed. And so what's next for me is Linked Up is next for me.
Great answer, Lawson. Now, before we leave, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our audience? How can they find you? How can they find what you're working on?
Yeah. You can find me. I'm on LinkedIn. Just type in my name, Lawson Hall, Lawson, Hall. If you want to connect on Instagram, I am Lawson Hall altogether. If you want to, so the app isn't, it's almost done. We're going to launch soon, but right now I'm helping student athletes, current and former, just find jobs. And so if you want early access to that, just go ahead and go to linkeduphallway.com. So that's LINKEDUP hallway, HALLWAY.com. And then just click get early access. Once you put your information in there, I'll reach out and I'll start helping you get jobs. So that's how you find me and that's how you get linked up.
Thank you so much, Lawson. Thank you for taking time to be on here. And I think what you're doing is so awesome and so needed. And I'm so glad that our audience is getting to learn a little bit about your journey, but also the reason behind why Linked Up is a thing. So
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me, Mickey. I think what you're doing as well is, uh, if not more equally important to the community because, the mental and physical wellness is, you don't work out as hard once you're done playing. And you don't really have access to a lot of resources for your mind, and things like that. So I think what you're doing is incredible. Keep it up. You're doing great.
thank you, Lawson. Now you're gonna make me emotional. Let's end this podcast before I get emotional, okay? If you like this episode, know someone that could use it, please like, share, subscribe, send it to somebody, and we will be back. Thank you so much.